Here's the good news. You got the appointment. Whew, that wasn't so bad, was it? Let's get ready to go see the prospect. Remember the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. At this point, you should be knowledgeable about the prospect, their company, their competitors, and how you can be of assistance to them. Now you need to get in there, establish rapport, gain trust, and make the sale. You're going to accomplish this by doing your homework, being willing to listen, and successfully demonstrating how your products and services will help to solve their problems and their needs. You'll also want to ensure that you make a favorable first impression, one that creates a positive response towards you and your ideas.
First impressions are derived from far more than physical appearance. Your personal hygiene, how you're dressed, the tone of your voice, your choice of words, and your gestures all contribute towards that first impression. In short, it's a lot of stuff. So let's break it down. First, personal hygiene. It seems obvious, but you'd be surprised. Make sure that you're showered, your nails are clean, hair is combed, breath is fresh, and that you use deodorant. Both men and women should avoid overpowering fragrances.
Second, wardrobe. It's typically better to dress more conservatively than too casual. Your choice of clothing sends a message to your prospect. If you're well-dressed, cleaned, and pressed, it tells your prospect that you're organized, take pride in your work, and that you are professional. Imagine how you'd react to someone meeting with you who looked disheveled and dirty. What would your first impression be? Would it be positive? You need to match your physical image to the person or company that you're meeting with. You don't want to be overdressed or underdressed for your meeting.
The more you can do to project a professional appearance, the higher regard your prospect will have for you. That makes establishing rapport and gaining trust so much easier. In some professions, such as the music industry or advertising, conservative dress is less of a requirement. But as a general rule, it's better to dress conservatively. For example, if your prospect typically wears a collared shirt and slacks to work, you might want to wear a collared shirt and slacks with a tie or a sports jacket. This projects professionalism and respect.
Third, the tone of your voice. You don't want to come across as unenthusiastic, unmotivated, or boring. To communicate effectively, you need to be both understood and interesting. To build confidence in your voice, practice your lines, record yourself, and learn to modulate your pace and pitch. I've also found that it's difficult to sound unenthusiastic, unmotivated, or boring when I have a smile on my face. Prospects want to do business with people who are enthusiastic and excited about what they do. If you can convey that enthusiasm in your voice, it will work to your advantage. And if you're a whiner, it's time to grow up.
Fourth, the words you use. The last thing you want to do is intimidate or alienate your prospect by making them feel ignorant. To avoid that, I recommend the KISS method. KISS stands for keep it simple, stupid. Now keep the techno-speak, buzzwords, acronyms, industry jargon to a minimum. If you use words and phrases that your prospect doesn't understand, you have a problem. The burden is on you to make sure you communicate in a manner that your prospects are comfortable with.
Fifth, gestures and body movements. Your gestures and body movements can add passion and credibility to your prospect's first impression of you. Practice them just like you practice the tone of your voice and your choice of words. Mold your gestures to fit your prospect's style as best you can. But sometimes you can't control your reactions to pressure and you just have to learn to accept them. For example, when I'm in some sales situations, I tend to perspire profusely. In the early days of my career, I was embarrassed. I viewed my sweating as an extreme negative. Since I couldn't control it, I made excuses. I wasn't feeling well, I'm recovering from a cold, or my favorite, I worked out right before this meeting and my body is still overheated. Boy, I must have sounded like a total fool. One day, while making a presentation in Pittsburgh, I began to sweat profusely. I apologized to my prospect for it, and he immediately cut me off. He loved the fact that I was sweating. It demonstrated to him how enthusiastic and passionate I was about solving his problems. That was a powerful moment for me. From that day forward, I've accepted my sweating as just a part of who I am. I even have clients who have towels and waters waiting for me when I come in for my presentations. There are many things that we can control and some that we can't. Control the things that you can and accept the things that you can't. Hey, this sounds like the Serenity Prayer.
When meeting a prospect for the first time, repeat their name and tell them how glad you are to meet them. Your greeting must be honest and sincere. Make sure that you pronounce the prospect's name correctly. If it's a bit more complex than, say, Smith or Jones, call their office prior to your visit to determine the correct pronunciation. Imagine how you'd feel if a salesperson trying to sell you something hadn't taken the time to learn how to pronounce your name.
Handshakes should be natural and comfortable. Establish good eye contact, give a firm squeeze, and release your hand after about 2 seconds. If you're nervous and get sweaty palms, just dab your hand with a handkerchief beforehand. Unless you have a prior relationship, I encourage you not to hug, kiss, or fist bump or do funky bro handshakes with your prospects. As you can see, personal hygiene, your wardrobe, your tone and your words, your gestures, and your greeting all add up to your first impression. Your first impression is the first step towards the ultimate success or failure of your sale.
The process here is simple. By asking questions and listening to your prospects' answers, you match their needs with your products and services. The more preparation you put in beforehand, remember those 5 Ps, proper planning prevents poor performance, the better the result. Plan your questions and rehearse your responses in advance. To prepare for the meeting, write down those key questions that you need to ask. Since it's easy to get sidetracked, you should write down your key questions and then rank them in a sequential order. That way, if there isn't time to address all of your questions, at the very least, you've asked the most important ones.
Develop your questions to identify your prospects' hot buttons, which again, are those issues that are most important to them. There are 2 types of questions, closed-ended and open-ended. Closed-ended questions are questions that can be answered with a specific response like yes, no, or maybe. Use closed-ended questions when you want to verify facts like, will you be the person making this purchasing decision? Or, how much did your company spend in advertising last year?
Open-ended questions are what I like to call the big payoff questions. Here, the relationship salesperson is digging for hot buttons. Open-ended questions are designed for prospects to elaborate and give details. Some examples of open-ended questions include, what do you like most or least about your current product? Or, what are some of the things that you like or dislike about doing business with your current vendor? Once you've asked an open-ended question, shut up and let the prospect talk. Answers to open-ended questions are the place where you'll evaluate whether or not the prospect has a need for your product and if a sale will take place. To successfully identify hot buttons, use a combination of open-ended and closed-ended questions.
The better you match your questions to your prospect style, the more you'll be rewarded for your efforts. Experienced relationship salespeople quickly create a level of comfort with their prospects that results in greater rapport and increased trust. Sometimes you realize that your product or service isn't a good fit for your prospect. If you can't provide the best solution to your prospect, politely advise them of that. Steer them in the proper direction and leave confident knowing that you've done the right thing.
It's quiz time. Time to see what you've learned. Question number 1. Which of the following contributes to first impressions? Is it A, your personal hygiene, B, how you're dressed, C, the tone of your voice, D, your choice of words, E, your gestures, or F, all of the above?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And the answer is F, all of the above. Personal hygiene, how you're dressed, the tone of your voice, your choice of words, and your gestures all contribute to a first impression. Question number 2. Both men and women should use noticeable and distinct fragrances to stand out in order to make a good first impression. Is it A, true, or B, false?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And the answer is B, false. Men and women should not use noticeable and distinct fragrances in order to make a good first impression. Question number 3. Regarding your choice of words, I've advised you to follow the KISS method. What does KISS stand for? Is it A, keep it sounding sophisticated, B, keep it simple, stupid, C, keep it socially sound, or D, keep interrupting soft speakers?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And the answer is B, keep it simple, stupid. Question number 4. Which of the following statements about gestures and body movements is true? Is it A, for the most part, you can control them, just like you can control your choice of words? B, you should try to mold them to fit your prospect's style as best you can? C, gestures and body movements can add passion and credibility to what you're saying and impact your prospect's first impression of you? Or D, all of the above statements are true?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And the answer is D, all of the above statements are true. For the most part, you can control gestures and body movements. You should try to mold them to fit your prospect's style as best you can. And gestures and body movements add passion and credibility to what you're saying and impact your prospect's first impression of you. Question number 5. Which of the following statements is false? Is it A, closed-ended questions are questions that can be answered with a specific response like yes, no, or maybe? B, closed-ended questions are the big payoff questions. C, open-ended questions are designed for prospects to elaborate upon and to give details. D, responses to open-ended questions are usually where you'll find whether or not the prospect has a need for your product and service and if a sale will take place. Or E, to successfully identify prospect hot buttons, use a combination of open-ended and closed-ended questions.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And the answer is B. Closed-ended questions are the big payoff questions is false. So to recap, remember what contributes to a first impression. It's your personal hygiene. It's how you're dressed. It's the tone of your voice, your choice of words, and your gestures. Remember that in your wardrobe, you need to match your physical image to the person or company you're meeting with. To recap about the tone of your voice, to build confidence in your voice, practice your lines, record yourself. Learn to modulate your pace and pitch. And remember that it's difficult to sound unenthusiastic, unmotivated, or boring when you have a smile on your face. Closed-ended and open-ended questions. Closed-ended questions are questions that can be answered with a specific response like yes, no, or maybe. Open-ended questions are what we call the big payoff questions. They're designed for prospects to elaborate and to give details. They're where you'll find whether the prospect has a need for your product and if a sale will take place. To successfully identify hot buttons, use a combination of open-ended and closed-ended questions. Congratulations! You've completed Chapter 6. In Chapter 7, Making Your Presentation, you'll learn the secrets to giving successful presentations.